Let's move to this now. The BRICS Youth Summit serves as a platform for young individuals to engage in meaningful discussions, networks with industry experts, and gain insights into various fields. With a focus on technology, shopping, financial services, and banking, the summit offers a unique opportunity for attendees to explore and learn about these subjects from a global perspective. Let's unpack this with one of the panelists, Sarah Mokwebo. Thank you so much for your time this evening, Sarah. We do appreciate it. Maybe just speak to us about the importance of having young people also have their say and understand things from a global perspective, but also global policies. Why is it so important for young people to be part of this BRICS Youth Summit?
Thank you, and thank you for having me on your show. Good evening to you and to your viewers. So, to answer your question, I think it's very important to have young people participate, more especially in the BRICS Youth Summit, because firstly, one of the many things that we often speak about, more especially as it pertains to Africa, is that we have a very young population, and Africa is also considered as the future of the globe, whether it's in terms of trade or investment or whatever it is that people could have be setting their sights on. So by virtue of having a youthful Africa, or an Africa that has younger population, it is therefore important to include it in various conversations that take place, whether it has to do with global governance or development or investment or whatever it is that people will be discussing at that point in time. It's very important to include the youth, because also the many burning issues that we have right now, whether it has to do with employment or it has to do with economic growth, or even with the matter close to home with us as South Africans, has to do with GBV, it's young people that are mostly affected by it. So it's very important to then have young people participate, not only in actually unpacking what challenges that they might be experiencing, but also be people that also are a part of the discussions that seek to come up with the solutions that are going to be beneficial to everyone.
When we speak about these solutions, Sarah, it's important to also have African solutions for African problems. And that's often overlooked, because you have a situation where you have this Youth BRICS Summit, but we're not really digging down to what the African problems are. So people want to bring these solutions, but they're not for our African problems. Is this something that's been coming up in the first day of this BRICS Youth Summit, that you're finding that, sometimes these conversations don't really provide the solutions for the African continent?
It's not necessarily that that's the main thing that came up from today's discussions, more especially, but it is something that was mentioned by a number of delegates to say that it's all good and well that we have an institution, if I should call it that way, or a multilateral institution rather, called BRICS, but it's still very important for us to be a people that are going to know that these are the solutions that Africa needs specifically, because for the longest time, and it's not something that is unique only to Africa, where you have people take solutions that have been working in other continents or in other countries and trying to apply it as is in their own countries, only to then realize or find out that it's actually not working, because that particular country or particular continent would have unique challenges or unique characteristics. But that doesn't mean that you can then not learn from what other countries are doing or other continents are doing, because you can then take whatever it is that they're doing and then try to adapt it to specifically what you are trying to address or trying to solve in your own country or society or continent. So it's, in as much as we are people that are saying African solutions for African problems, it's not something that will ordinarily come from the sky. We are going to have to observe what other people have been doing and then sit against amongst ourselves and say, how best can we then apply these good lessons that we can learn from what other people have successfully implemented.
Okay, fair point. I just want to ask in terms of, there's always been this argument that young people have to fight to have a seat around the table. And with BRICS, it's obviously very critical, because policy is definitely going to be discussed. And this year, it's obviously quite a sensitive BRICS summit that's going to take place, given what's currently happening with Russian President Vladimir Putin. But do you still feel, as a young person, that it's a fight to have a seat around the table, especially when it comes to policy decisions and policy discussions?
I don't even think that it should be a fight. Of course, we have to be a people that would necessarily have to fight to be included in the conversations that take place. But there's also other logical reasoning that people actually should start exploring because, for instance, if the interest of BRICS is to strengthen economic relations between these 5 countries and maybe other member countries that will then form part of the BRICS bloc, it makes absolute economic sense to have young people who actually then become the most economically active to be part of whatever it is that is trying to come up with, and to also then inform the kinds of policies that are going to be adopted, the kinds of policies that are going to be implemented if they already exist, and also the ongoing conversations, because the world or the globe is a very complex system that changes with time. So you need to then continuously have young people form part of that. So outside of the fact that we as the youth have to fight to have a seat on the table, it's also very logical to actually include a demographic of people that at this point in time, they are the most economically active, and they also have the potential to either consume whatever it is that you're trying to produce, for instance, or they are going to be the beneficiaries of whatever it is that you're trying to come up with. So it's not also only an issue of equity, if I should put it that way, in wanting to include youth in the same way we say women must be included in particular places, but it also makes actual economic and political sense, because even if you were to look at the majority of people that say would be eligible to vote everywhere and not only in South Africa, majority of them are the youth. So if you then want those people to participate in whatever processes that are going to be taking place, it means you need to then also involve them in everything that builds up to what you think is then the objective or the final goal that you want to reach.
Okay, thank you so much for your insights. We do appreciate it. That is Sarah Mokwebo, one of the panelists at the BRICS Youth Summit.